led by of human settlement. Let me take this opportunity to welcome honorable members, department, and our guest in the meeting. As usual, I'm going to request that we observe a moment of silence for meditation and prayer. Before we start with our meeting, to invite those that believe.
1901, when are we starting?
We have started, Honorable Mushala.
Chairperson?
We have started, Honorable Mushala. We can hear you, Honorable Mushala. I don't know what's the problem.
Am I not audible?
We can hear you. I don't know whether it's Koliswa.
Hello, Chairperson.
You can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
But my network is not stable, so it cuts sometimes. But I can hear you now.
Honorable Mushala, we have started as you were speaking. Yes, because probably the problem of the network. I was saying that I was welcoming members to the meeting and requesting that we observe a moment of silence for meditation or prayer before we start with our meeting. Can we observe a moment of silence? Thank you very much, and amen. Honorable members, this is a continuation of the meeting that we have started last week on the HDA annual report. Already we have received the auditor's report represented by Mr. Nguba, Mr. Ngumadi auditors. Today we have invited the department. We want to take the opportunity to welcome everybody in the meeting, honorable members, and hand it over to the department without wasting much time. We'll have the political heads. I don't see the minister, but I see the Deputy Minister Chwete, Deputy Minister Chwete.
Oh, good evening.
Or maybe before we start, Koliswa, can we just note the apologies? Sorry, I've missed that. Koliswa, she has a network problem. I don't know, but I don't see the minister here. I see the DM only. Koliswa.
Hello, Chairperson.
Yes, can we note the apologies?
Hello, Chair. I received an apology from Mrs. Tseke Grace. She has a bereavement, so she won't be able to join us. And also from the Minister of Human Settlements, she won't be able to join us today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me then hand it over to DM Chwete. DM Chwete.
Oh, thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, Chair, and all members. The minister is traveling from Johannesburg to the Eastern Cape. She's on the plane at the moment, but she has an apology. But let me start by greeting you, Chair and honorable members, and allow me to greet the Director General of the National Department of Human Settlements, Mbulelo Changane, and the senior officials present here today. But again, Chair, Mbulelo is also on the road. He might have a problem of the network, but I have DDG Neville Cheney with the team. They're here with us if we have a problem with the DG. And Chair, today we are here to brief the Portfolio Committee about the annual report of the Housing Development Agency for the financial year 2019-2020. It is important for members to note that this annual report does not deal with issues related to the temporary residential units and temporary residential areas, which will be dealt with in the annual report next year. Members will be aware that the HDA requested an extension of submitting their annual report, which was eventually tabled in Parliament in December 2020. The department is aware of some of challenges faced by the entity, but I would like to bring into context the incredible value of the Housing Development Agency in the human settlement space. The HDA was established by the department in 2009 as a national entity whose services would cut across provincial and municipal spheres of government. Its mandate was
Honorable Masala.
Sorry, DM.
Okay.
Chairperson, I'm worried. The previous time when the minister was here, she told us that he's not the member of the portfolio committee, and I think according to the statement, she said she only comes to the committee's meeting on if the committee summoned her to come. I think the Minister of Human Settlement is the only one who doesn't attend to portfolio committees, and is getting too much now. Like here now in HDA, she's actually the executive authority of the entity in terms of Housing Development Agency Act, but the minister is not here. So I don't know whether is it possible in future when we have a portfolio committee.
Can we call Member Musala to order, please?
We summon the minister to come to the portfolio committee to
Honorable
come in.
Masala. Honorable Masala.
Chair.
We have passed that. We have said. Koliswa indicated that the minister has apologized, and DM when he started to present has indicated that adding to the apology.
No, I don't disagree with regards to that.
Yes,
but I also want to raise
issue,
my view is it is not the issue is not over yet, because the DM was still speaking.
No, we've passed. No, we've passed.
Member Musala, you are out of order.
Honorable Musala.
Honorable Tseke, you are also out of order. You have been out of organized.
What is the problem when we raise
Honorable Musala? I'm saying that we have the minister has submitted the apologies. We have noted the apologies, and I'm saying the DM elaborated on the apology of the minister, but Koliswa has tabled the apology. You had an opportunity that time to raise a
Chairperson.
point of order, Chair.
Chairperson,
My hand has been
Chairperson,
up.
every
But
member
Chairperson,
is
Honorable
allowed,
Moshala, give us a background about the minister.
every member is allowed to apologize. We don't have a problem with the minister apologizing. I'm coming
Member
now.
Mushala, but you
Another
stopped the
person of
DM
us will-
speaking.
are
You
out of
can't
order.
interject.
You
You
are
can't
out of
interject
order,
while
Honorable
someone is
Seke.
speaking.
out of
Honorable,
You are
No,
also
you were out of
interjecting when
order. The
somebody is
DM was
speaking,
speaking and
Honorable
then you
Seke. You are
interjected.
also out of order. You are interjecting
honorable,
also. You
honorable
have not been
members,
recognized yourself.
honorable members, I know that you had the long day. Please allow us to proceed with the meeting. The issue here is that we have noted the apology of the minister, and the minister is represented. The office is represented by the DM. You have missed the opportunity. No, you have missed the opportunity to reject that apology. So can we proceed, Honorable Moshala, allow DM?
It's Honorable Powell. I have a question, Chairperson, not an objection. I have a question in relation to the
Senior,
deputy.
we are
You
not.
can't question
we
an order.
allow
When a person is out of order, you can't have a question to an order.
Rejecting the
The
apology.
person is out
We
of
are
order.
saying-
So let's move with the meeting,
no,
Chair.
but Honorable Moshala, you cannot stop the DM for presenting and then you want to interject. Allow DM to present and then you will come if you want to raise. The DM is still on the platform. Allow her to present.
Okay, but please, you must in future call Tseki out of order. He is very out of order too, because I'm expecting you to rule me out of order, not him coming here and causing havoc. It's just actually.
No, Honorable Moshala, please let's proceed with our meeting.
You must call
because
to order.
no,
I'm raising my own view.
Honorable,
I must allowed to speak, and then you rule me after that.
Honorable Moshala, you could hear that it's not Honorable Tseki alone. Yes, it's not Honorable Tseki alone. Honorable Shelley and Honorable Tafeni, they are making a lot of noise too. So, but I'm addressing you because you're the one that
the conductor was
Only thing
who was conducting was conducting the chorus. That's why.
background of that minister that is not of this
Honorable
department.
Moshala and Honorable Tafeni. Honorable Tafeni and Honorable Moshala.
Honorable Moshala, uyayibeka kakuhle at the end funeke siyazi aqale meeting
But why you
apologies.
Why do you have to?
Ibalulekile la ndibithetha nguHonorable Moshala.
Ibalulekile, we
I
know,
know
but when
awuzuyisela so because awuzifaka nakwi-minutes.
Honorable Mvana nawo ungena.
ibingazofakwa
Honorable Mvana nawo ungena.
nitheni namhlanje nivuke rongo.
Honorable Tafeni, Honorable Mvana, please, honorable members, I'm warning you, if you proceed the way you are doing, I would have a problem. I've said, Honorable Moshala, we have noted the apology of the minister, and DM is just elaborating on the apology. If you want to ask the question, you'll ask the question after the DM has finished presenting. Allow the DM to present. Honorable Tafen, I'm not going to warn you for the second time. Honorable DM, proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I was saying the mandate of the HDA was to identify, acquire, and develop strategically located land for building and establishing human settlements. This mandate was created to ensure that the HDA plays a strategic role in clearing and increasing backlog for adequate housing. However, the demand for the sustainable and socially integrated human settlements has grown over time, and this means that the HDA has to perform under intense pressure. the more that government continues to deliver services, the higher demand grows for such services. As such, the DA's mandate was extended into a more dynamic space involving informal settlements upgrading, emergency housing, and project management support, amongst others. In fact, it was through the HDA that the department was able to identify 136 priority housing development areas when the target was actually 94 areas. It is these priority development areas that are going to ensure that 68,000 households in Gauteng benefit from the development of two major human settlements projects of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. Lanseria, Smart City, Mooikloof Mega City Development, and other projects. From the period 1st April 2019 to 31st March 2020, the HDA was able to deliver housing units and service sites in various provinces and municipalities. Furthermore, the HDA achieved most of its key targets for the period under audit. In spite of these achievements, the HDA has been struggling with instability and governance issues. The department is aware that we need to turn things around at the entity, and a detailed action plan from slide 20 that you are going to be presented, you will notice slide 20 onwards is in place and to respond to the auditor's concern around irregular expenditure. I'm raising these issues, Chair, because they are coming up in the presentation, and internal risks that have threatened the stability of the entity. As the department, we are charged with stabilizing the entity, and as such, Mr. Neville Cheney, who is amongst us, has been deployed as an administrator to stabilize the HDA. Chairperson, I don't want to waste time. We have DDG Cheney to do the presentation. As I said, that the DDG is driving, he has a problem of network, and I will allow, if you allow me, Chair, I will request that the DDG Cheney to do the presentation, and also DDG Cheney introduce the team. Thank you very much, honorable members, for listening to me. I thank you so much, Chair.
Chairperson, it's Honorable Powell.
Thank you very much, Honorable DM. Honorable Powell, let's allow presentation and then you'll ask question when they are finished.
Chairperson, this is a legislative matter in terms of the people who are present in this meeting who have got jurisdiction over this entity in terms of the Act. I am concerned that we do not have the necessary authorities present today, because in terms of section 3, 1 and 2 of the HDA Act, this entity is a juristic person, and executive authority for this entity is vested in the minister, not in the deputy minister, as much as we welcome the comments. Now, the board has been disbanded, which means that there is no accounting authority present here.
Chairperson, these people are out of order, Chair. We have passed that stage. The apologies was the agenda. Chair, call them to order, please.
It's not about apologies. This is about legislative jurisdiction.
Honorable Teki, allow Honorable Powell to finish. I'll respond to his addressing the chair. Honorable Powell, proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll be quick. I know that we've all had a long day, and thank you for protecting me from these ongoing interruptions.
What I was requesting previously.
What I'm asking you, Chairperson, is there a parliamentary legal advisor with this committee who can give us a guarantee that the people who are giving us and who are going to be responding, these are parliamentary meetings, which means that people can be held accountable for things they say. The minister is the executive authority. She's not here. That executive authority does unfortunately not extend to the deputy minister in terms of the act. There is no board. The board is the accounting authority. The board has been disbanded, which means that Mr. Cheney, who has now been appointed as the administrator, needs to in this meeting then assume full responsibility for all information in regards to this entity, because the Director General of the department actually has got very little jurisdiction here. So is Mr. Cheney comfortable with proceeding in the absence of the executive authority, given the statements that will be made here today? And is the committee comfortable proceeding without the executive authority of this entity present, given that the undertaking made was that we would wait for this briefing until the minister was present? Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Powell, though the DM is not part of the executing authority, but minister is the deputy minister appointed by the president to assist the minister in the Department of Human Settlement, and the Constitution of the Republic says the minister can delegate the deputy minister. So for the DM to be in this meeting, obviously has been delegated by the minister, and Mr. Cheney has been appointed. As an administrator, he's going to take full responsibility of responding to questions that are asked by members. So deputy minister, even though they are not members of the executive council, but the constitution says the minister, in their absence, can delegate the deputy minister, and the deputy minister is here, and we have agreed.
Which section is that, Chairperson, from the Constitution?
You can look at it, Honorable.
Can you assist us, please?
No,
because
no,
you are posting it now. Can you assist
yes,
us?
I'm saying the Constitution. It says that when the minister is not available,
can you assist us?
You can delegate. You can open it. I don't have my Constitution. I know it's there. I can't remember the section, but it's there. So can we proceed with the meeting, honorable members? If you feel in the process of discussion, you don't get the necessary answers that you need, then you can then recommend that we need answers from the minister because we are not happy with the response of the DM or of the administrator. You cannot actually cast aspersion even before we start the meeting on the delegated people by the minister to the meeting. Can we proceed, honorable members?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Cheney.
DDG Cheney will do the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honorable GM, Honorable members, Honorable Chair. Chair, I am joined in the meeting with the Acting CEO, Mr. Stephen Poya, and the entire senior management team, executive management team of the HDA are all present as well. And then just to acknowledge the colleagues from the Department of Human Settlements, the CFO is present as well as the COO, Mr. Ngongo. Chair, I'll just do the brief executive summary based on some of the issues that we thought we would lift out and highlight. And then also after that, I'll hand over to the acting CEO, Mr. Poya, who will then introduce the team that will assist him in making the presentation, particularly on the detail in the annual report for 2019-2020. Next slide, Mr. Mini, please. Thank you, Chair. Chair, just to indicate, I mean, the period of review, and I think it's just important because there's been a substantial amount of issues around the HDA. So I think that what we need to agree on or just note is the period for the review is the 1st of April 2019 to the 31st of March 2020. And during this period, the HDA was under administration between the 1st of April 2019 and September 2019. So for that period, the HDA was under administration. Chair, just to note and in relation to the period that flowed between 1819 and 1920, there was an action plan, audit action plan adopted, implemented, and monitored. And slide 20 to 29 provides an overview of the successes achieved and some of the progress made in relation to that audit action plan. Some of the key governance and financial matters that have been put in place, but this is still work in progress, I need to emphasize, includes the risk register, the contract register, a supply chain management policy, which is undergoing a revision, and then the makings of an internal audit and risk audit unit are being put in place. Chair, honorable members, you'll note in the presentation we indicate that what we've done, particularly in relation to the National Treasury guidelines to process the identification of irregular expenditure, irregular and fruitless expenditure, as well as the institution of consequence management. During the period, there was a company secretary and the company secretary was appointed in April 2020, although the process to start that appointment had commenced in the year under audit. Chair, just to indicate, and I think to note that the HDA delivered 4,655 housing units and 6,041 service sites as mandated by various provinces and municipalities, which the HDA does have agreements and implementation protocols with. Just to note, as at 31st of March 2020, the work in progress was 6,822. I think just to contextualize that, the HDA's contribution to the delivery figures for the sector for 1920, the financial year, can be compared to the Free State, and Mpumalanga, and Northwest. And if you factor in the work in progress into the figures, then the HDA's performance can be likened to the Western Cape. Next slide, please. Chair, I think it's important just on these two points here, that the review and improvement of organizational efficiency, financial management program and project capabilities, together with capital and operational sustainability, still remains a priority. But I think some of the important points that we raise in terms of the work and the progress we've made will be demonstrated, Chair, in the 2021 financial year. And when we present that, which will probably be that towards the end of this this calendar year, we will then be able to demonstrate some of the progress. Chair, with your permission, I would then like to ask the acting CEO, Mr. Poya, to then introduce the team that will take us through the balance of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, honorable members, Administrator and Deputy Minister. We have a presentation that we're going to make for the organization. I would like to introduce Tebogo Sijani, who's going to take us through the presentation, together with Memeng Tsecha, who's going to deal with the financial elements of the presentation through you, Chairperson. I'll hand over to Tebogo to take us through the presentation, and I'll come in when the questions are raised. Thank you very much, Chair. Tebogo.
Okay. Thank you, Acting CEO, and good evening to the members of the Portfolio Committee. We'll be taking you through the presentation as Mr. Poya has just indicated. I will take you to some aspects of the presentation until we get to the audit outcome, which is on slide 16 At that point, I will hand over to our acting CFO, Ms. Mimeng Tsetla. And the presentation contains the following: summary of the core mandate of the HDA and the functions of the HDA, the HDA program structure, the overall organizational performance, and that includes the trends of performance from Q1 to Q4 of the period under review, the detailed organizational performance, highlights in terms of performance in the period under review, both governance and operational highlights, the composition of the HDA board in that period, the organizational structure and equity statistics, the key indicators and how we are fared against those key indicators, the audit outcome of the HDA in the period under review, financial statements, and also the post-audit action plan and recommendations. Next slide, please. The summary of the core mandate and functions of the agency. I think the DM went into detail to explain the functions and the mandate of the HDA. Primarily is to ensure that the HDA identifies, acquires, hold, and develop and release well-located land and buildings for purposes of delivering human settlements to the communities in South Africa. We are also charged with the responsibility to ensure that we provide project management support and housing development services to various spheres of government, municipalities and provinces who often enlist our services to ensure that we assist them in the delivery of human settlements. We are required to ensure that residential and community developments are sustainable, viable, and well located or appropriately located. In the discharging of our responsibilities, we are also required to ensure that job creation is optimized in the process of residential and community development. We are also required to ensure that and manage a land inventory and information system. This assists in the planning for future human settlements development. We are also charged with the responsibility to ensure that there is community participation, which we do through our social facilitation work, to ensure that communities are part of the process when we deliver human settlements. Next slide, please. Part of the HDA development support to stakeholders include the following: program and project portfolio and management support. This is the support that we provide through our offices, which are located in the various provinces across the country. Project technical implementation support. We also have been charged with the responsibility to ensure that we provide the support on the informal settlement upgrading program, which is also linked to the emergency housing support program. The land assembly and land acquisition is one of the key areas of mandate for the HDA, the land holding and land holding support, and also providing land and geospatial services. Intergovernmental relations support is also key, and this will be explained further as we go through the presentation, because the work that the HDA does is basically providing support to the various spheres of government, and therefore it's necessary that agreements are entered into to ensure that those relationships are managed and are documented. We have also been given the responsibility to deliver on some Section 29 projects that includes the NT Gateway and Zanenvula projects, which have been on the HDA's list of programs. This slide gives members of the portfolio committee a sense of how the HDA program structure is. We have 4 programs within the HDA. Program 1 looks at administration, and it focuses on ensuring and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of the organization. And this is where you find all the work that has to do with ensuring that there are systems within the organization, the CEO's office, the CFO's office, audit, and all of those functions are under Program 1. Program 2 is one of our core programs within the HDA. This is where the land assembly and land management program is located. So all the work that we do in providing the support to the human settlement sector and ensuring that there is land available for delivery of housing units is is undertaken through Program 2. Program 3, if we move to the next slide, is a program that looks at regional coordination and development management. By regional coordination, it's basically the span of HDA offices across the provinces, which we have clustered into 3 regions. Region A would consist of the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and the Northern Cape. Region B consists of Limpopo, Northwest, and Gauteng. Region C consists of KZN, Free State, and Mpumalanga. In all of these provinces, in the period under review, we had active offices that, with staff providing the necessary support to the programs. In addition to these, we also provided program management support, which we do through the Informal Settlements program, the revitalization of distressed mining communities, and the catalytic projects. And I will speak to these later on as I go through the presentation. The last program is the planning and monitoring program, that is to ensure that all the work that the HDA undertakes is coordinated, and also there is the support that is provided in terms of monitoring and evaluation. I'll move to the next slide, please. This slide gives an overview of the performance of the HDA, and I think I will build on to what Mr. Cheney said at the beginning of the presentation to highlight that this is a period when the HDA was under administration, so the performance that is there is reflective of the period that we were going through, the challenges that we were going through, albeit that we were able to perform and achieve some of the targets even under those circumstances. In Q1, we only achieved 41% of our targets, in Q2, 50%, Q3, 48%, and Q4, 50%, which gave the overall performance of the organization about 50%, 2%. Next slide, Mr. Smini. This slide gives a breakdown in terms of how each one of the programs performed. And I will just draw your attention maybe to Program 3, because that's one of our core programs, and that's where we had a lot of the challenges. And I will explain those challenges as we move on with the presentation. Program 2 as well is a core program, but we did manage to achieve 2 of our targets there, and which are critical targets in terms of the human settlement value chain and support provided. Move to the next slide, please. This slide gives us a summary of the performance highlights for the HDA in the period under review. Our target for the acquisition of well-located land in the period under review was 3,000 hectares of land. And I think we need to emphasize the well-located component. In this period, we achieved 3,514 hectares of land that was acquired and has been released to the human settlement sector for further development. We were also able to exceed our target for parcels of land that have been rezoned. Our target was 5 parcels, we got to 6 parcels. The DM also indicated during her presentation that we were tasked with the responsibility to identify priority housing development areas that will provide a significant yield in terms of human settlement developments in the sector. The target was 94, but we are able to identify 136 and have all of those 136 declared. The implementation protocols, MOUs signed with municipalities and provinces are critical in the delivery of the HDA work, because this is where the IGR component of the HDA work comes in. For the HDA to be able to do any work in a province, in a municipality, some sort of agreement has to be entered into. That agreement would detail which projects will be delivered, what would be the targets, what would be the funding structure for those programs. And I will come back to this point when I speak about where we have performed and where we have not performed. We were able in this period to complete 11 implementation protocols. That's fine, Mr. Mini, you can move. In terms of our governance and operational highlights, at the time, again, putting it in context that the HDA was under administration, but we were able to get out of administration when the board was appointed in November 2019, which began to set up systems to ensure that the organization comes out of the administration period and that systems are put in place. The board structures were established, which is important in the governance of the HDA to ensure that these structures are in place. The Corporate Support and Remuneration Committee was established. The Audit and Risk Committee was established. The Social and Ethics Committee, Land Planning and Development Committee, and also the Project Investment Committee. At the time when we were still under administration, an acting company secretary was appointed in September 2019, and the incumbent was actually confirmed as an appointee in April 2020. A CFO was appointed in May 2020. Manager Audit and Risk appointed in October 2020. I think these are important points to make, and when we get to the Audit Action Plan, which the CFO will take us through, we'll also be able to link why these are so critical. And all executive positions were filled during this period. Next slide, please. This slide gives an overview of the board members for the period under audit. As I mentioned earlier on, a board was appointed in November 2019. Section 9 of the HDA Act does prescribes what the HDA board should look like. There has to be 2 executive members and 7 non-executive members, and those non-executive members must also come from the Department of COGTA, the Department of Rural Development, and the Department of Public Works. So in the period under review, we had all of these members seconded to the HDA board, and I think the details are there in terms of when they were appointed and their names. You can move to the next slide, please. This is the organizational structure for the period under review. It just gives a sense of the key programs of the HDA and how the organization was structured in that period. You can move to the next slide. We have also included information in terms of employment equity statistics at during that period. The total staff complement of the HDA was 235 staff across the country, and the presentation gives a breakdown in terms of the percentages and the national target percentages and how we have fared against that. Next slide, please. This slide brings us to the key indicators. So while in the APP we may have several indicators, there are those that we have identified as key indicators, and this slide gives an overview of how we have performed against those ones. Some of these matters I've already covered when we're talking about the highlights of HDA's performance. That includes the target on land acquisition, which we have achieved and exceeded, the target on parcels of land for rezoning, which we have achieved and exceeded. The targets that we could not achieve, the housing units targets, our target for the year under review was 6,498. We did not achieve this. We only managed to deliver 4,655, and our shortfall was 1,843. The service sites delivered, our target was 9,100. We did not achieve this target. We only managed to deliver 6,041, and our shortfall was 3,059. Again, if we put this in context, because of the period of administration, I think that we did knuckle down as employees of the HDA to ensure continued delivery even under those circumstances. The Informal Settlements program, which is a key program, as I mentioned during the presentation earlier on, here the focus was to actual upgrading of informal settlements. So we only managed to get to 6 for this program. Next slide, please. We had a target to provide 50 catalytic projects with capacity and delivery support, and we managed to achieve that target. So 50 catalytic projects throughout the country were identified and have been provided with technical support, capacity and delivery support to ensure that there's continued delivery of human settlements. We also, through the Mining Towns Revitalization of Mining Towns program, managed to develop and exceed the target of the spatial transformation plans in those locations. Our target was 3, we have performed at 5. We have already touched on the matter of the PHDAs, which is, we also exceeded that target. These are the key indicators of the HDA in that period. And now we'll be looking at some of the reasons why we have not attained the targets that we had set for ourselves. As Mr. Cheney has already said, that the HDA was going through administration, and that process also slowed down delivery to an extent. The second point here is also about the non-attainment of targets is born out of the fact that the HDA does not directly receive funds for its capital programs. This goes back and links back to the point I was making earlier on about the IGR agreements, the implementation protocols, the MTOPs that we sign with municipalities and our provinces, which detail the projects and the programs that we have to implement and those targets. So oftentimes what happens with that, you find that the partners do not transfer the associated funds at the time when the funds are required. Sometimes the funds are transferred to the HDA late, and that affects performance of the HDA, and which means that we cannot timeously meet our obligations. At this point, the HDA is also looking at, as part of its recovery plan, to ensure that to avoid these types of challenges that we downscale on some of the programs and also not take on any projects that we have not received funds for. So what has happened in the past is that once the agreement is signed, we take on the projects, but sometimes the funds have not been transferred. So for us to ensure that we don't find ourselves in some of these challenges in the future, we are putting in systems to ensure that we will only take on projects when the funds have been made available. Next slide, please. I think at this point, I will hand over to our acting CFO, Ms. Memeng Setla, who will take us through the audit outcome and the financial statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable PM, Honorable Chair, Honorable members. I will take you through the slide of the audit outcome and the financial statements. Next slide. The HDA received a qualified audit opinion in the audit of 31st of March 2020, and the below notes are the notes that are coming from the external auditors, where they're saying, except for possible effects on the matters described in the basis of qualified audit opinion section of their report. So if I could go to the next slide, Mr. Mini. On this slide is a summary of the audit report. The first one is the regression in audit outcome. HDA 2017-18 received on the yellow section, on the point 1 on the single debt facing up, we received an unqualified finding with audit with findings. We then in 2018-19 received a qualified audit opinion with findings. In 2019-20, we received a qualified audit opinion with findings. On the next block, that's number 2, assurance levels. The first level of assurance, which is senior management, executive authority, accounting authority. We have received from the auditors a yellow, which means that it provides some assurance. On the second level of assurance, the audit committee and the internal audit also provide some assurance. If we go down, Mr. Mini, on the same slide, on number 5, pointing down, the auditors have also put together for us the root causes that should be addressed. Most of these root causes are our SCM processes. We are seeing that we have non-adherence to SCM processes. There is a slow response to consequence management, and acting positions at a senior level needed to be filled in. On our risk areas, where we need to provide intervention as the organization is on our quality of our financial statements, submitted performance information, supply chain management. We are receiving a good financial health and a good human resources management. They are sitting there at the green, and our information technology is concerning, needs some improvements. On the next block, Mr. Mini, status of internal controls. In terms of leadership, where we get a yellow is concerning, which is an effective leadership culture in the organization, and oversight responsibilities, policies, audit action plans, IT governance, intervention is required, and that we have received at a pink color. Our HR management, again, is good. In financial and performance management, the auditors have picked up the issues of proper record keeping, processing and reconciliations, regular reporting, compliance monitoring, IT systems controls need some intervention. In terms of our risk management, internal audit, audit committees, we have a good rating from our auditors. Next slide. We have put together an extract of our action plans, and on this slide, it shows the improvement on some of the things that in this financial year have already been put together and they are in place. We have a strategic risk register in place. We have put together an operational risk register. We have updated our library of risk incidents in the organization. We have also put together what risk profiling that shows our emerging risk, and that whole section of our risk monitoring is effective. In terms of our reporting, quarterly reports, we have enhanced our monthly reporting performance assessments. We are on top of risk mitigations in terms of our action plans, and we are busy reviewing our risk management progress. On the next slide, we have in the previous 2 financial years, we did not have a contract management unit. We have now established a contract management unit, and this unit is helping us with the filing system of contracts, is assisting with us knowing when a contract starts and when a contract ends, and is also helping us to mitigate irregular expenditure at the start of the contract before any payments could be done. This unit was established, it's got employees, and it's effective and up and running. On our IT services, we have developed a business continuity policy, and we have enhanced our user access controls, our security management, and in terms of governance and minutes. Mr. Shaini has also mentioned that the company secretary has been appointed and all the documents are available. Mr. Mini, thanks. On the management and oversight, we have achieved at the moment 80% eradicated, but have finding again. So what we have done here is we have taken all our findings and we are working on monitoring on findings that have already been cleared. And we have cleared about 80% of the findings that came from the auditors last year. We have appointed an audit and risk manager. This unit is overseeing the audit action plans and monitoring and doing audits, spot audits on a regular basis. We are reviewing our policies. We are training staff. We are also improving on our SCM committees. We have established a registry where we now know which policies needs to be reviewed, which policies are updated. We have also, in that process, updated our policy registers. Mr. Mini, thanks. Next slide. In terms of our organizational efficiency and costing, we have done our internal consolidation of activities, alignment of our internal activities. We are sitting at 80%. So we are, as a team, making sure that alignment of our organizational objectives are talking to our APPs, are talking to our objectives. In terms of the board, there would be an appointment of the board. The company secretary has been appointed. So we are working on our governance as part of the action plans. We are financially stable as an entity. If you recall on the slide of the audit report, we've received a good financial health and a green light there. Thanks, Mr. Mini. We've got, we have reported an irregular expenditure on our financial statements, and the team, together with the audit and risk manager, have come up with an action plan to address these audit findings. And we have adopted the National Treasury Practice, Practice Note 4 of 2008. The SCM department has developed a checklist, and this checklist will help us at an early stage to determine any possible irregular expenditure. We've got a contract management department that is going to be responsible for listing contracts that have expired. That will be possible irregular expenditure. As we've mentioned, we've got a new internal audit and risk function. Our irregular expenditure register is submitted to this unit, the audit and risk function. They are busy currently with the investigations, and a report will be submitted to the CEO. Next slide. We've also put together a process flow on how, as the entity, we are going to be addressing the irregular expenditures. We are looking at Section 38, Section 51 of the PFMA, where it says the accounting authority, respectively, to comply and ensure compliance with the Act. And this responsibility encompasses and defines the legislative universe which the entity comply with. So here we are stating the responsibilities of the accounting officer as required by the PFMA, and we are noting that the accounting officer needs to ensure that systems of internal control have been implemented to assess and treat irregular expenditure. Next slide. Continuing with the process flows, the following controls have been put in place. SCM has developed a checklist. In this checklist, it takes into consideration and the definitions of irregular expenditure and the National Treasury guidelines on irregular expenditure. This process happens at the time where before a bid committee can go and assess documents. So the checklist is our gatekeeper. On a monthly basis, awards that were made during the period are assessed against the checklist to identify non-compliance with legislative prescripts and the supply chain policy. This information is recorded in our irregular expenditure register on a monthly basis, the same register that will be flowing to our audit and risk manager. Continuing with the controls, the internal audit function conducts a determination test to test whether non-compliance qualifies as a financial loss. The information is collected to ascertain the following: the root causes that led to the transgression, employees that are responsible for the irregular expenditure, whether the entity has suffered financial losses, what is fraudulent, corrupt, or other criminal conduct. A report detailing this investigation outcome is forwarded to the CEO and CFO. Should the investigation report confirm that irregular expenditure emanates from a fraudulent activity, corrupt, or other criminal conduct, the accounting officer reports the matter to the South African Police. The accounting officer will institute a forensic investigation into the alleged matter within 30 days. This matter will also be reported to the Office of the Auditor General of South Africa. Upon receipt of the forensic report, the transgressors will be subject to, a disciplinary process in accordance with our HR policy, applicable legal prescripts of the country. We have also put together a recovery process, and this recovery process also links to the finance department. The finance department has commenced with the recovery of losses incurred. The department must demonstrate that all possible avenues were used to recover the losses. The finance department must disclose the amount recovered and amount irrecoverable at the end of the financial period. Finance will request for the condonation of irregular expenditure, with the sanctions instituted the HTA for transgressors. An updated irregular register is tabled at ESCO on a monthly basis and signed off by the CEO. We will now look at the numbers for the financial year ended 31st of March 2020. This is the statement of financial position of the entity. We are reporting total assets of 1.1 billion with total net assets and liabilities of 1.1 billion. A significant item that would sit in our balance sheet will be our cash and cash equivalents, which is reported at 638 million. What is sitting in our cash and cash equivalents is funds of the HTA, funds of the provinces, and funds of the municipalities. The funds that are coming from our stakeholders, which are provinces and municipalities, are ring-fenced, and they are all in a separate bank account. And these funds are supported by funding agreements and contract agreements. On our current liabilities, we would report also project obligations, which is a significant item of our balance sheet, at 666 million. And this is account that is supporting the cash and equivalents. It's on an accrual basis, so it also includes contracts and agreements. It also includes contractors payable and accounts receivable. Next slide. Our statement of financial performance, this is the income statement. We are reporting as an entity a deficit in the financial year of 1.6 million. The significant item in our deficit is on other expenditure. We have impairment of project receivables that we have reported at 58 million. This impairment was as a result of non-payment that we were expecting from our stakeholders. And we are happy to announce that in December, of the following financial year, the funds, significant amounts of these funds have been received. Next slide, Mr. Mini. This is the changes. This slide is the changes of our net assets. On this slide, we can see that the balance on the 31st of March 2018, we had a surplus of 21 million that we reported as an entity. We moved in the 31st of March 2019, we reported a deficit of 12 million. And 31st of March 2020, we reported a deficit of 1.6 million. Chairperson, I would like to put on the slide that if you look at March 2019 to March 2020, there has been an improvement in the deficit. From the 12.6 million, we are reporting a deficit of 1.6 million. Thank you, Mr. Mini. We are reporting here a cash flow statement. A cash flow statement is a statement that shows how the funds if the HDA is in good financial health. And if you look at your net cash flow from operating activities, you will see that we are reporting a positive cash generated in operations. We are moving into a good financial health. Thanks, Mr. Min. Our budget information, what we're doing, we are comparing the budget that was approved by our accounting authority with the actual that we have spent. And we have spent 353 million against our budget of 475 million. Our significant item here on our budget spending is our provinces. If we look at support that we get from provinces, we have achieved actuals of 102 against the budget of 218. And the reasons would be that we will get a recovery when we have spent operational costs from provinces. And as we are aware that 2020 was quite a difficult year, operational costs were not as high as expected when the budget was approved in the prior financial year. Mr. Mini? Thank you, Chair. I have completed my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, sorry, DM. Just to indicate, Chair, I just think there's just one point which I thought, or 2 points which I thought is important to note. And the issue is that during the course of this financial year, there were a number of disciplinaries that were undertaken. In fact, arising out of those disciplinaries that was instituted during the 1920 financial year, 2 of those employees were subsequently in the following financial year found guilty and dismissed, and then 3 other exits of senior managers occurred for various reasons arising out of pending dismissals. Chair, the other important thing, and I think it was raised in the previous meeting, was the issue around the question of the bonuses paid. Just to indicate that in the audit period under review, that's 1920, the bonus payment reflected is for 1819, not for 1920. So as you would know, Chair, that bonuses are only paid or determined if they should be paid, if they are, once the annual report's approved and on the basis of performances and agreements entered into. Thank you, DM. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. That's our presentation. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, DM and the administrator and the team from the HDA. Honorable members, that was the presentation. I'm now going to allow honorable members to interact with the presentation. Honorable 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 Powell, followed by Honorable Mohotu, followed by Honorable Mushala. Yeah, those are the hands for now. Honorable members. Okay, let's start with Honorable Powell.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'm glad that we've still got almost 2 hours because I've got quite a few questions. I would also just like at the outset before making my contributions, if Mr. Cheney and perhaps any legal advisor for the committee could just explain to us what their understanding of a juristic person is and what level of authority the executive authority of a juristic person has, because I think that it's a great shame that we are having this committee meeting in the absence of the person who is in fact the executive authority, being Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. Nevertheless, Chairperson, the caretakers of this organization should hang their heads in shame all round. This annual report is indicative of an entity in extreme crisis, as I have said before. Not only have the legally required financial control systems almost entirely failed, but the constant reshuffling of senior executives, the appointment, dissolution, reappointment of 2 boards, and the extensive and unparalleled degree of irregular expenditure incurred is cause for grave concern to all of us. This committee needs to today act in the best interests of the people of South Africa, finally demanding full and proper explanations with a view, as I have said before, to establishing full liability for the ongoing financial malfeasance that has continued unabated year on year at this important entity. It must also be noted that the minister, in the absence of a board, as the executive authority of this entity, which is a juristic person in law, must assume full responsibility now for the ongoing mess, given that the accounting authority has been again dissolved. Prior to the start of the reporting year, the entity had twice been placed under the care of administrators. The now dismissed chairperson's report of the annual report noted that the HDA's period of administration ended at the commencement of this reporting period, with the appointment of a board in April 2019 that was in office only for 1 quarter. This short-term period was informed by the fact that the executive authority, the minister, dissolved that board in July 2019, as she has now recently done with the interim board that she appointed in November 2019. So that's 2 boards that have been dissolved by the minister. The minister's comments in opening this annual report note that she was certain that the board that she appointed would ensure the implementation of the revised strategy and operating model to effect all of the necessary interventions that were at the time required to turn this situation around. But that board has also now been dismissed. So what happened? Mr. Poya, who I note in Nkululeko Poya, has been appointed now as the CEO. And I don't believe, Chairperson, that it is acceptable that a CEO who was not even employed by the entity at the time in question is now in this committee delegated to provide responses. Furthermore, chief financial officers managed the entity at 2 different points, 2 different CFOs during this period. The entity had 3 acting CEOs, while the full-time CEO, Mr. Malloy, according to the report, earned an annual salary of 6.5 million rand, which was an increase from the previous year of 2.25 million rand. That is a staggering amount of money, 6.5 million rand. But at the same time, 3 acting CEOs took the reins. Performance at the entity has also been shocking, with just over half of their annual targets having been achieved. For instance, of the 34 informal settlements that were supposed to have been provided with technical capacity, only 6 were assisted. Most shockingly, of the 2,000 title deeds that were planned, only 403 were delivered. More so, in 2018-2019, the year prior to this annual report, a cash deficit of 36 million rand was declared, in contrast to the 497 million rand held in cash. Now, we've just been told that an entity that is generating cash and has a high cash balance, it's indicative of good financial health, but it's only indicative of good financial health for a government entity when those cash holdings are allocated against projects. So although the agency might hold high cash balances at the end of the year, Mr. Cheney, at the end of the 2018-19 year, declared that those funds were committed to managed projects. But at the end of this financial year before us today, cash reserves were even higher, sitting at 638 million rand, which is more than the entity's entire budget allocation for the year. That means that not only did the entity's managing agents actually fail to take remedial action with regards to allocating these funds, but in the past financial year, the situation has become worse. Surely, Chairperson, this could point to willful financial negligence, especially in light of the fact that there was no consequence management taken in respect of the recommendations of the previous audit report. More so in 2019-2020, the year under review, the target of a funding model having been developed and approved by the board was also not met yet again. Can Mr. Cheney perhaps tell the committee why not, or which officials will take responsibility for what appears to be, at this point, actually a deliberate failure to institute these critical and legally required remedial actions? To continue, in the financial year in question, the agency's independent auditors noted that the agency did not comply with the PFMA, the Public Finance Management Act, and that its own internal supply chain management policy failed. Payments were made to a contracted party in which, based on the forensic audit, implicated certain executives to have in fact acted unlawfully. In this audit report, we've also seen failures such as there were no adequate systems for identifying irregular expenditure, payments were made against unknown receipts, overpayments were made, work was done without agreements in place with other departments, contracts were awarded to suppliers whose tax matters had not been declared, contracts were extended, they were modified without the approval of delegated authorities, and quite seriously, financial statements were not prepared in accordance with the prescribed reporting framework. Chairperson, in the private sector, if somebody didn't follow the law in preparing a financial statement, they would be reported. They would likely have a hearing and have their license to practice revoked. So just getting to the heart of the matter and the real questions here, it's clear that the audit recommendations in relation to the previous annual reports were not only not implemented in this financial year, but that they were actually completely ignored, which is what's led to this situation continuing. And the ministers and the board of directors are, in terms of the legislation that governs this entity, the respective executive and accounting authorities. So that means they're in charge. Minister, executive authority, board, accounting authority. They have got legal duties. Yet the audit outcome that we've just seen in the presentation actually indicated that the executive authority, meaning Minister Sisulu's own level of assurance, deteriorated. It went into the red, meaning that as the executive authority, the audit has found that the minister has not provided the requisite level of assurance, but in fact, the level of assurance provided by the minister has declined. So I'd like to know, what liabilities does the minister and the executive authority assume for the extensive irregular expenditure incurred? Now, unfortunately, as an official, that's not something that Mr. Cheney can answer, which is, again, why this committee wanted the minister here today, because she is the authority in law who can respond to that. So, Chairperson, I don't know if we can possibly get written responses or as I have written to you on the 12th of February, perhaps hold an inquiry where we can put these questions to the executive authority. But just to get to the sort of rapid fire questions, I hope the officials have pens. What disciplinary action has been taken in respect of the 2018-2019 audit report? So we hear from Mr. Cheney that 2 employees were dismissed, 2. So we had 109 million rands worth of irregular expenditure in 18-19. We've got 131 million rands worth of irregular expenditure. We know of 2 officials that have been dismissed. What further steps have been taken? Are there any investigations that are underway? What disciplinary steps have been taken to identify individuals who were complicit in these systems?
Honorable Member, can you summarize so that you allow other members to interact with the report?
Yeah, we've got an hour and 40 minutes, Chair. I'm sure it's fine.
But you cannot address as 20 minutes and not allow other members. Allow other members to ask questions, and then if we still have time, we'll come back. Summarize,
okay.
Member. 1 minute.
Can you give me 5 minutes, please? I'll
one.
Quickly. Chairperson, you can't deny me my right to ask the officials.
No, honorable member.
I've asked 2 questions so far, and I've got about another 15.
Honorable member, you took more than 5-6 minutes.
You didn't give us
addressing.
time, Chairperson. If you
I'm saying,
I would have edited my
honorable member, I'm saying, summarize within 1 minute and allow other members to ask questions. And then we'll get the department to respond. If there is a time, you still have time until 9 o'clock. But I cannot allow you to speak alone in this meeting. And
can you give me 5 minutes to ask the rest of my questions, please?
Already you have taken 6 minutes, honorable member.
6 minutes, Chairperson. We have 3 hours. This is an entity costing the taxpayers of this country hundreds of millions of rands.
But give other members, honorable member.
That is ridiculous.
Honorable member,
can you please give me 5 minutes? We've got an hour and 35 minutes left.
Honorable Powell, we've got 10 members of this committee. If all of them they want to use
the list
the
of members who wanted to ask questions was 4 members. We've got time.
They've raised their hands. Look at the pan.
You are protecting this entity by denying
honorable member, I don't have a reason to protect this entity.
Like you may, I need 5 minutes to ask my questions. That is not an unreasonable.
No, honorable member, you will come back later. Allow other members to ask questions.
What a waste of everyone's time, Chairperson.
Honorable member. You have to.
You are the chairperson. I will respect your ruling, but this is ridiculous. So please note that I have not asked my questions, and that after the other members have asked their questions, I request you can come back to me to ask my questions.
6 minutes. 6 minutes addressing
6 minutes is a 3-hour meeting, chairperson.
Honorable, but you are not the only member. You are not the only member. Honorable Mohutu.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Cheney has just said to us that disciplinary steps with regard to transgressions that occurred in the financial year 2019-2020 have been taken towards 2 officials, and those officials have been dismissed. What I want to know is, what type of transgressions did these officials do? And then was their sanction equal to the transgression that they've done? Have they committed wasteful expenditure, fruitless expenditure? If they have committed wasteful expenditure and fruitless expenditure, even irregular expenditure, why, after they've been dismissed, weren't they told to pay back that money? Because that is taxpayers' money that was supposed to have been used to deliver service to the people of South Africa. And then another question is, why was there no audit evidence that could be obtained that showed that disciplinary steps were taken against the HDA officials who incurred irregular, wasteful, fruitless expenditure during the financial years 2018, 2019, and 2019 to 2020? Another question is, did the Department of Human Settlement do effective and timeless oversight in order to address non-compliance with legislation by the HDA? If so, why did it not intervene, give guidance to cap irregular expenditure, wasteful expenditure, and fruitless expenditure that occurred in those two conservative financial years? And why, now this question is referred to the HDA. Why did the management not exercise adequate oversight responsibility over the preparation of the annual financial statements, performance reporting, compliance with laws and regulations, and internal control? And then again, another one, why did the management of the HDA not implement proper record keeping in a timeless manner to ensure that complete, relevant, and accurate information is accessible and available to support financial and performance reporting? And then, does the HDA have an overarching plan or program to address the challenges that contributed to qualified audit results? And then another question, why were some of the competitive bids adjudicated by a bid adjudication committee that was not composed in accordance to the policies of the public entity as required by Treasury Regulation 16A, 6.2A, B, and C? And then why were some of the contracts extended or modified without the approval of a properly delegated official as required by Section 44 of the PMFA and Treasury Regulations, Section 8.1 and 8.2? What are the reasons for lack of availability for military veterans housing in Limpopo? What have been put in place to address the challenge of untraceable beneficiaries in Limpopo?
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. Honorable Musala.
Thanks so much, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Let me start by saying that I'm going to go back to the issue of the availability of the minister attending the meetings of the portfolio committee. Unfortunately, Chairperson, previously when I raised this matter, would say give no jamba moropa before jamba before moropa. It's a problem.
Address member as a member, Honorable Member.
Because, Chairperson, I was not saying that the apology of the minister must not be accepted. I was saying next time, more especially on this issue of the HDA, let's summon the minister, because previously when the minister was here, she told us that she can only avail herself when she gets summoned by us. Actually, we did not know that she's not going to be available today. We should have requested from you that you summon the minister so that she can be here, but it just jumped because they like to protect the minister, even though she did not request for the protection from there. Chairperson, other honorable members have touched on the issue of the CEO in the annual report, earning close to 6.5 million alone in the year 2020. Previously, he got 4.3 million. Boom, in 2020, when the office of the CEO was vacant, there was an increase of plus or minus 2 million. What is that? What caused that, Chairperson? Can they explain why did they see it important or to increase his annual earnings? Chairperson, the Auditor General not the Auditor General, the findings by the independent auditor. He dealt with the issues of irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, the issue of project obligation and project receivable, the project payables, and other things. And he also dealt with the issue of procurement and contract management. Honorable Mukoti have already touched on issues of procurement, but can the HDA explain to us in detail what went wrong to the issue of procurement and contract management? It seems like because some of the competitive bids were adjudicated by a bid adjudication committee that was not composed in accordance with the policies of the public entity, as required by the Treasury regulation. And we all know that we must comply in terms of that. So people are just doing because they know there's no consequence management. Can they please explain to us what went wrong? Why are they doing as they wish? Some of the contracts were awarded to suppliers whose tax matters had not been declared by the South African Revenue Services. There's no one who doesn't know that. Even myself, I know. I'm not a tenderpreneur, but I know that you can't get any work from the government if your tax clearance certificate is not in order. Can they please explain themselves? Because we see lootings here, and they loot as if they don't know what things that they are doing here, they are out of order. Can they please explain themselves what went wrong? Sufficient appropriate audit evidence could not be obtained. That major infrastructure project were reviewed by a gateway review team in accordance with the framework for infrastructure delivery and procurement management. There's a lot of things that are out of order. Then we have hired people that doesn't know what their responsibility is. If all of these things just went wrong, we are in an entity which is in disarray, the entity that is not functional, if that is the case, because everything went wrong here. And the other thing they must explain to us about the performance bonus. We saw previously when they were not here, we discussed about the performance bonus. What was the performance bonus for? Can they explain for us? We worked also in private companies, in public companies. We know that if you did not do well, you don't get the performance bonus. Why did they get performance bonus? What was it for? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Musala. Honorable Mvana. Honorable Mvana.
Chair, thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know really where to start, but some other questions have been asked. But I just want to say to the HDA, this is really unacceptable. I will repeat what I've said when the independent auditor gave us the report. Especially when you see something like fruitless expenditure, irregular expenditures, which has already been touched by other honorable members. But maybe we have to wait, as they have promised that, because they were under administration. But you don't expect those things to happen even if they were under administration. Let's maybe wait for the answers, Chairperson, and then we'll proceed from there. Maybe I'll have to come back again in follow-ups, because I'm still also having lots and lots of questions on what really had happened. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mvana. We've lost Honorable Zeki.
I have a network problem.
Honorable Sifai, please, you can write your question on the chat sheet if you can, because I didn't hear anything. I'm not sure whether they were able to hear what you're trying to say.
Did not hear anything.
Yes. So can you
hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you, Honorable Sifai. Now we are gone. Can you get the better spot, Honorable Member? Let's pass to Honorable.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Honorable Sifai. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Honorable Sifai. Proceed, Honorable Sifai. Let's jump you. You'll come when your network is better. Let's go to Honorable Zeki.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, let's process this discussion. And then when you opened the meeting, you said this is a continuation of a meeting that started, I think it was last week, where the auditor presented to us. And then we said, okay, let's wait for the administrator's team to present to us. In their presentation, they will tell us the truth on those challenges they went through. And they will also tell us what did they do. I think in that Echeni was given an opportunity to say, what is he doing in response to many challenges that were there. Now, what we are asking, Chair, is to hear what the department does. Based on what the department is going to do, I think we'll be taking a political discussion as a committee to say, based on what the auditor said, the administration is doing, what is the department doing, and we will take a decision. Members have already made proposals. We don't want to either say we agree or disagree with their proposal. I think their proposals are well listened to, but they may be premature. I remember Powell sings her song as she sang last time. And then we know exactly what is she going to say, based on what she has said. She will say this thing again in future.
Point of order, Chairperson.
So probably what we need to do
Point of order, Chairperson.
With the plan of the department, I'll only keep quiet. I'll only keep quiet when the chair say I must keep quiet. We will then hear the
point of order, Chairperson.
Program of action from the department. And I can tell you that we'll be able to take a decision. Hello, Chair. Yes.
Can we send there is a point of order that has been called, Honorable Leon?
Yes, I was waiting for your direction.
Yesterday on Tuesday, you requested us not to answer questions on what other members are saying. That is for the department. Can the honourable member stick to the questions he wants to ask and not stick to questions or comments he wants to make on questions that members are asking? Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Tseki, can you ask questions and not respond to other members? If the department has got capability to respond to the questions.
I have not asked questions, Chair. I've made a proposal. This meeting is not only to ask questions. Member Leon should have known that long time. I've made a proposal, which I said, Chair, let's process these matters. The matters that has been raised by the auditor, but not the.
Yes.
Sorry,
yes,
Chair.
Honorable Tseki. Honorable
by
Tseki.
the auditor. Yes,
Honorable
Chair. Yeah, ma'am.
Please help me to run the meeting. Honorable, we given the department the opportunity to present the annual report and respond to the issues that were raised by auditors.
Chairperson.
Mr. Chain.
Oh, thank you.
You can't hear me? You can't hear me?
We can now hear you.
Okay. Honorable Tseki, I'm saying that we have given a department opportunity to present to members on the annual report and issues that Auditor General have raised, and Mr. Chain and his team, they've presented to us. We're interacting with the report of Mr. Chain for questions, clarity, and comments, and then from that, as you indicate, that is when, after the response of the department, we'll then be able to take the matter forward, whether we are satisfied or we're not happy with the response of the department. So allow members to interact with the presentation as presented by department. And Mr. Cheney and his staff, they went thorough on what they have done for this financial year that is under review. So can you interact with the report, not interact with members' inputs?
Okay, Chair, maybe I need to make sure that you please allow me, because that's exactly what I was doing.
Okay.
The only difference maybe was to mention Member Powell. So maybe let me withdraw that part.
Okay, thank you.
That part.
Thank you very much.
All what I'm saying, Chair, is that this presentation, it's a department's presentation or it's an HDA presentation. That's where I was saying maybe I seek guidance. My view is that these questions that we are asking today were asked to the auditor that was presenting last week, Chair. So where I'm sitting, I'm awaiting an action from the department. And based on what the department is guiding us on what they do, and as a committee, we will take a decision. And that last part of the department, I'm not sure whether I've missed. I've not heard that part, last part. But I heard Mr. Cheney as an administrator of the HDA. So I'm fine with that part, Chair. That's why I was asking, just a process. And then if we ask question to Mr. Cheney and ask him to act, I think in the presentation, he has already said what actions he has done. I'm just afraid.
Point of order, Chairperson.
Chairperson, point of order.
I'm actually finishing, Chair.
Point of order,
All what I'm saying is that I just want to hear what the department would say, Chair. That's all what I want to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
It is very out of order.
You are out of order, Zeki. You are not here to represent the department.
How differ
the department?
How differ
the spokesperson of the department. They didn't request you to be the spokesperson.
How differ out of order? There's an order. There are differences.
I've been listening to you all along.
Honorable Mutseki, and Honorable Mokhala and Honorable Mohotu, please let's respect the meeting. If you have a point of order, you must do it as Honorable Leon has done it. You don't have to talk both of you in the same time, and how Honorable Zeki. And Honorable Zeki is raising the question. He's raising the question to the department to say that the department. He says the department.
The department have already, according to him.
He doesn't want the department
to question. He's protecting. He don't want us to get
honorable members
from HDA and the department.
Honorable member, Honorable Mokhala,
meeting is a continuation of the previous meeting. We want
Honorable
to
Mokhala, Honorable Mokhala and Honorable Tafeni, please allow me to chair this meeting. Honorable Zeki is saying
Why
he
do you
wants
have to
to
shout?
hear. He
wants
to
Honorable Tafen. Andithethe utheni uzothi Honorable Tafen kodwa kandithethe urhoxisa eligama lithi Honorable Tafen because kandithethe apha.
Honorable Mokhala, please let's allow other members to raise. Honorable Zeki has got the right to ask the department question because this is the entity of the department, and the department has a responsibility to oversight on the entity, and we cannot say it's out of order when he says department must tell us what is it that they are going to do themselves.
No, but
it's not out of order, honorable member. Honorable Tafeni.
No, Honorable Tafeni never talked or said anything. Enkosi Sihlalo, i-network yam iyabheda.
I'm recognizing Honorable Tafeni to speak.
Enkosi Chairperson, andina-network kakuhle, but I will try into yobana ndivakale.
Switch off your video, it will be better.
Yes, andiswitchile i-video off. Enkosi Sihlalo, ndibulise kwi-members. Chairperson, ibonakala ingxelo. Ndithi mandiyibulele ingxelo ka-2019 to 2020 yonyaka mali. Chairperson, indinika umnqamna yonke lento because ekugqibeleni there is nothing eyenzekayo on the ground ebantwini. Intle yona i-report. And two, akho nto ibuhlungu njengokuthetha apha ucebise le department ngokufuna uba mayibheke phambili inceda abantu boMzantsi Afrika. Emva koko ufumanisa uba ayirecognizwa kwale nto uyenzayo ngoba xa kufika i-minutes there is no one ufumanisa ebenike inantsika ingcebiso kwi-department kwi-opposition parties. Andiyazi ke noba le committee yepati ethile na ndicinga uba fanele uba this committee is here to belong wonke amalungu emibutho ekhoyo, but kwi-minutes zenu rhoqo zibuya zingu-agreed wenu. So indinika umnqake loo nto leyo because kuyonakala apha phandle silibele kukuswayisa izinto ebantwini abazibonayo. Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape, ndicela undikhusele chairperson kumama uMvana.
Honorable Mvana, allow Honorable Tafeni. Honorable Tafeni, talk to the representation of the department. I don't hear Xhosa proper better, but I've realized that you are not speaking to the report. Can we talk to the report, Honorable Tafeni?
Okay, Nkosi Chair. Chairperson, on 2020, there is 6.5 million. That is so I noticed that there are no follow-up in those projects.
I'm not sure whether it's me who have lost you, Honorable Tafeni. Can you start from the beginning so that your question can be answered? Honorable Tafeni.
Chairperson?
Yes, we can hear you now. Proceed, Honorable Tafeni, we can hear you.
In the middle classes.
I'm not sure. Honorable members, can you hear Honorable Tafeni? Or the Mr. Chain and the department? Do you hear Honorable Tafeni?
Wall
No, Chair.
4 years.
Honorable Tafeni.
2017.
Honorable Tafeni.
Chairperson.
By the department that was on the Eastern Cape.
Chairperson.
Was allocated to build.
Chairperson.
Yes, who's that? Honorable Mushala?
Propose that we pass. We go to Honorable Sitrai. Honorable Tafeni will come afterwards. I think she has a problem with the network.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Tafeni, get a spot that you can be audible. We didn't hear anything. Honorable Sitrai, it's not back. Honorable. Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Honorable Sifai.
Thank you, Chair. My apology for the network. I didn't know what's happening. Chair, thank you very much. Firstly, just to appreciate the audit report, because I think the audit report is revealing a lot of problems which are organizational from HDA.
Okay,
HDA, one of the 3 areas that I found that were problematic.
Honorable Tafeni, can you mute your mic? Can you mute your mic, Honorable Tafeni? Proceed, Honorable Sekhwai.
3 areas that I found that were problematic from the origin of the structures ka HDA. Firstly, HDA, it depends on other sectors to start the project. He plans or she plans for projects that does not have money. She doesn't know if she's going to get that money. She waits from other people to give money to him or her. She has no authority because budget is an authority. Budget is an authority. It is a pity that this issue has happened because the program that has been established, Ekutwa is an Imvula project, 4,000 houses that were built by HDA. The regression that has came to HDA is a sad issue. It's a sad issue. very clear. The organizational structure is a problem. The authority that HDA does not have to deal with the project management principles. She can't plan because money has to wait for money coming from some other areas. But I appreciate the action plan, Chair, because what HDA has done is to, with the department, is to analyze its weaknesses themselves and be able to see where are the risk areas. But at the end of the action plan, I am not getting a view that talks about up until when HDA is going to get a direct budget to HDA. You see, because municipalities and provinces sometimes, they do what they want to do. They don't understand the national directive. I am not getting that. When are you getting a direct budget to HDA for HDA to implement the programs? Because the program, the logical framework of a program has got to have resources on its own upfront. Then you are able to plan clearly in terms of your program. Happy also to hear that consequence management has been applied and there are officials that have been disciplined and dismissed, because it's important so that you make sure that you clean your slate. You are able to identify where we have done wrongs and be able then to correct the department. So I'm saying with all the weaknesses that I see, the organizational structure of HDA, it started from there. But the action plans that are put here, I really appreciate. But HDA must have an authority. It must have an authority, because it doesn't have an authority. It will not be able to implement even the new one if it operates the way it has operated in terms of the old structure. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Sekhwai. Honorable Tafeni.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, my question is HDA, how is the HDA responding to invasion of service distance and disruptive community protest? The second one, what measures have been implemented in the Eastern Cape to address the challenge of untraceable beneficiaries, even in Limpopo province? Another one, Chairperson, what is the reason for the lack of availability of stand for military veterans housing in Limpopo? And what were the delay in the external audit? Chairperson.
We're listening, Honorable Tafeni.
Chair.
Honorable Tafeni, are you done?
Chairperson, ndivakele na. In situ, what were the reason for the delay in the external audit?
We heard you, Honorable. We heard you. We heard you. I hope the department has heard you. Honorable Connie Siopasingwe.
Thank you.
Honorable Connie.
Chairperson, I wanted to go back to the suggestion which Honorable Mvana raised to say maybe we should give the department to respond and then we can take another round, because there's a lot of questions which have been raised, which I have interest to hear what the department has to say. So I will second that idea that let us allow them to respond and then we can have another round. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Okay, let me give the department time to respond. DM and your team.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I appreciate the comments and questions and advices made by the honorable members, and more especially Honorable Sefwai. I think you are right by saying HDA has no authority. They are the implementing agent, but more of the questions are directed to HDA. So because I do not want to waste time, Chair, I want to give straight to DDG and then the HDA to respond, then I will come at the end. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chain.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, DM, honorable members. Let me just express my appreciation for the questions and the comments. Chair, I will address some of the points, and then I'll just ask my colleagues, Memeng, the acting CFO, Mr. Kozat, and the acting CEO, as well as Mr. Rakhwale, but I'll just indicate which are those. Chair, I think I just want to reiterate the point is that as the department, and I think as even a core group of officials in the HDA, the matter of irregular and fruitless expenditure is taken seriously. I think the point that is that we exercise that responsibility and accountability, and it's a matter that we take seriously. Chair, just in relation to the first point, I think it's just important to note that when an audit takes place, it is a reflection on the previous year in terms of what has occurred. And in the process, and I think the important process going forward is that what are the audit action plans and the audit actions and the rectification and mitigation measures that are taken to resolve those issues. And I think the important point, Chair, is the issue around the question of irregular expenditure and fruitless wasteful expenditure. Chair, I think if I could just indicate, I think members have had sight of the fact that I think it's on slide 26. There's a specific action plan to address the matter related to irregular expenditure, what the steps are, what the actions are, who is responsible, and accountability. And I think if
that slide,
Chair, if I could just ask Mr. Mini, Your Honor, it's slide 26. Chair, so if you see this, the slides that follow, and one of the things that what is important to note is that in the audit, together with the post-audit process, there were a number of weaknesses that were identified. So, for example, the lack of applying National Treasury practice notes, the SCM, the policy was outdated, the checklist, contract management register was not in place. In fact, there was no contract management department. The internal audit and risk function, there was one person. In fact, there was no internal audit function or unit, and the risk function was carried out by one particular individual. There was no irregular register, and all of those things, Chair, were as a result. So if you have to ask what were the results of that, I think it's a whole range of things. All of the stuff and all of the weaknesses and the deficiencies that occurred was occurred over a period of time. And it started in and around 2017-18, and it deteriorated. And members of the portfolio will remember that 18-19 was a particular period of turmoil. Now, the point I'm getting at is that there were weaknesses in terms of capacity, in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience, and that resulted from a whole range of things. People left the organization. There was a lack of discipline. There was, as the committee members have rightly identified, lack of consequences, and all of these things contributed to the fact that there was irregular, fruitless, wasteful expenditure. There was flaunting of SEM processes. And I think the important point, Chair, is that there's an audit action plan, and that plan is in place. And there's been a substantial amount of, there has been what I would say improvements in the process. And I think that is on slide 22. So you'll see there was no incident register, particularly in relation to risk incidents. There was improper. There was no governance frameworks. There was no ICT steering committees. The accounting officer did not adequately perform oversight over financial reporting. So where are we now? So if you go to slide 22, Chair, you'll see, and I think Memeng, our acting CFO, has raised what we have been able to achieve. So we have the risk register, we have all of those things in place. But I just want to highlight one point. Chair, when it comes to irregular expenditure, any form of irregular expenditure is not to be condoned. But when we identify irregular expenditure, there has to be an investigation to determine what the root causes of that. And in many instances, it could be non-compliance with regulation, it could be non-compliance with policy prescripts. It is not always, and I think I'm not saying that some kinds of irregular expenditure can be condoned or accepted rather than others. So there's an investigation that takes place, and once that is determined, it then results in either an official being charged or facing disciplinary, or there's consequence management. And in relation to consequence management, it could be warnings, it could be final written warnings, it could be disciplinaries based on that. Chair, I think in relation to what has been the consequence management, and I think those are the important things. In relation to the matters of the two senior officials that were found guilty and dismissed. One was found guilty of SEM irregularities and gross irregularities for that matter. There was another senior official that was found guilty of gross misconduct, extension of contracts without approval, and effected payment. So you'll see that those things occur, and I'm pretty sure, Chair, that in the next financial year there will be further steps that will be taken, and we'll be able to report on what some of those actions have been taken to correct that issue or the consequence of that. Chair, on the matter related to I think it's just the one issue that I need to address up front is the 6.5 million for paid to the previous CEO, Mr. Molloy. That was not the salary. An amount of 3.2 million of that amount was salary for the financial year. And the financial year ended on the 31st of March. So that was, what happened was, Chair, that during the course of the disciplinary, so there was charges, there was a disciplinary that commenced. And one of the things that occurred was that in an assessment, of the matter related to Mr. Molloy, if the disciplinary had continued, it would have continued past Mr. Molloy's contract of employment with the HDA. And it was basically a weighing up of the cost benefit between the legal costs versus what it would be to have the matter settled, and a separation between Mr. Molloy. And in relation to that, the cost benefit was that it would be better for us to separate or extinguish the relationship between ourselves and Mr. Molloy. And that's where the 6.5 million. So it's the salary plus the settlement amount. And the reason for that was that if you look at the financial year in question, the HDA expended a substantial amount of money in relation to legal costs. And those legal costs were as a result of employees, of investigations, of employees dragging out disciplinaries. And one of the things that we need to indicate is that we have to follow the rule of law. We have to follow a disciplinary process in relation to how that happens. In relation to the matter of the increase, the 638 versus the 497, and I think Member Powell raised this issue. On an annual basis, the HDA enters into contracts with provinces or municipalities to undertake work, either house construction, planning, or whatever the case may be. So what happens is that, coupled with money that maybe was rolled over or came from a previous financial year, there are new commitments that gets taken. So that figure of 638 versus 497, and I'm sure if we come back to the committee for this financial year, that amount will change. Because the HDA is contracts with municipalities and provinces where they lack capacity, and the HDA then gets contracted to do that work. And we contract work for Northern Cape. We contract work for Eastern Cape. We contract work for the Western Cape, a substantial amount of the N2 gateway. We do work in Gauteng. We manage the title deeds in KZN. So all of those things are, so the figures that are reflected in that is a disclosure, because it means that we can account for the funding. So if you had to translate this to to a province or a municipality, if you look at their rollover and their balance sheets, you'll find where there are commitments that are rolled over, and those amounts are there. It's amounts that are there. Chair, the issue around the question of the financial model, it was deemed not prudent at that point, given the fact that we had come out of that very tumultuous position in the 1920s. So between the period of the incoming board as well as the new financial year, it was deemed appropriate to come back to undertake a review of the structure together with the funding model. And I can inform the board, the committee, that for the current financial year, there is a revised model that is in place. However, I think Member Shishwai has raised this issue. The HDA, one of the things that has come up, and the department agrees with the HDA on this, is that the HDA has become reliant on provinces and municipalities in relation to sourcing of funds to carry out certain work. And one of the things that has been said is that if the HDA has to carry out its function as per the Act, and you can benchmark this against very good practice in across the world, those institutions or those development companies, even Sanrail, for example, are provided with the capital to be able to undertake the work that they do. And that is work in progress between ourselves, the department, together with the provinces, because one of the things that we have to deal with as the HDA, together with the department, is the concurrency matter. It's not possible to directly allocate money to the HDA because the HDA is not a 10th province. We have to be able to respect it. And that is one of the issues which we've identified as the HDA, together with the department, together with the provinces and municipalities, as an issue that needs to be dealt with. Now, coupled with that is that because the HDA is reliant on provinces and municipalities, one then finds that the HDA then has to, there's contracts that get seeded, there's projects that get given to the HDA. Sometimes those projects are not properly matrix, or there's no proper readiness matrix in terms of determining what the issues are that need to be dealt with before the money is received. In certain instances, a contract gets given to the HDA in March, and in April it then expires. And that is one of the reasons why, for example, the HDA found itself not complying with I mean, I think there was a SCM finding around that, where payment took place as a result of contracts having expired. Now, we can apportion the blame to all of the officials and the responsibility, but I have to take accountability for that. Now, one of the things that occurs is that we know, in terms of contract payments, and when contractors get appointed, there's the whole issue of balancing the 30-day payment versus matters of expired contracts. So yes, those things occurred. There were payments made against expired contracts for work that was done, but the contract had expired. And in those instances, we've taken action to go back to National Treasury, the Chief Procurement Officer, and ask the Chief Procurement Officer to then condone and regularize those contracts. So you'll see on those issues around the question of SCM, irregular expenditure, fruitless, and they vary in reasons why that occurred. But it's also important to note, and I think the committee's raised this, that when you have weak systems, when you have weak controls, when you have no controls, there will be individuals that will take advantage of that. And that's what results in the issues around misconduct, in the issue of sidestepping SCM and those kind of things. So it is there. I mean, so that occurs. I mean, I think I just want to reiterate.
Can you summarize and because I can see on the time members want follow-ups, can you push?
Okay, thanks.
Please. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just to indicate, I mean, I've addressed the issue of that. Chair, the transgressions, I've done that. I don't know, Chair, with your permission, if I could just ask the acting CFO and Mr. Rachwala and Mr. Koza to perhaps address the issue around the question of the DMV lack of housing and the manner in which the matter related to beneficiaries are addressed. Thank you, Chair. Memeng?
Acting CFO.
Chairperson, I would request Mr. Rachwale as our land holding regional manager to assist. Thank you.
Mr. Rachwale.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. I will respond, I think, on the Limpopo Military Veterans Housing Units. To date, Honorable Chair, of the 611 targets for the construction of military veterans houses, we have completed 447 units, and we currently have 118 units that are currently under construction or in progress. The challenges that we are experiencing there with the rollout of this program, Chair, is the fact that the distances in between villages, it's vast, such that it doesn't really make business sense for contractors to build one military veteran here in this village and then the rest in the 100 kilometers away. To address that, Honorable Chair, the contractors that we appoint to do normal rural housing units in Limpopo, we somehow ask them to also build the military veterans housing units in between as part of the construction of their housing units. On the issue of untraceable beneficiaries, that varies from area to area. In the main, where beneficiaries cannot be traced, we would normally publish that in the newspapers, local newspapers circulating in the area, so that the beneficiaries can avail themselves to benefit from completed housing units. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rakhali. CFO, you still want to speak on other issues?
Chair, sorry, if I could just indicate, Chair, I mean, if I've left out any one of those, I mean, it's not because I'm skipping them. Chair, I've written, there were, I mean, I think there was substantial amount of comments that was made, and I think those comments are accepted and agreed upon, and we'll come back to the committee when we present a quarterly report, if that's required, so that we can address some of the issues. Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, honorable members, Mr. Chen, can you talk to the issue of the bonus again? Because members have raised it. I know you've spoken to it, but members have raised it. Probably they've missed your input on that.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as requested, the amount that's reflected in the annual report for 2019-2020 is bonuses that was paid in respect of performance agreements that were signed and agreed upon in the 18-19 financial year. So it was not for the year under review. And the HDA does have a performance management system in respect of staff, and that includes where staff do qualify, those amounts are paid with specific reference to bonuses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I get members to follow up questions? So I've got Honorable Emma, Powell, and Honorable Brutus, Honorable DG Changano wants to speak. DG, can we request that you want to come before members?
It's okay, Chairperson. There's a question that was raised by...
Chair, DG is here. You would want to respond to some of the questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Oh, let me
Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes, DG.
I will get guidance from you, Chair, whether you want me to respond now or to wait for the follow-ups. But I wanted to respond to the question that was raised by Honorable Sihwai Mamnensi about the capitalization of the HDA. Number HDA has never been capitalized. They always rely on the
DG,
provincial budget.
DG, can we take all the other questions and then you can then respond?
Respond.
Yeah. Let's
Thank
get
you very much.
Yes. Honorable
Thank you, Chair.
Powell. Okay.
Thanks.
Honorable Powell.
Thanks,
Honorable
Chair.
Teki, Honorable Mokotu, Honorable Sefai, as Honorable Mvana. Can we proceed?
Thanks, Chair. Honourable Powell here. Just want to go back to what Mr. Cheney has said about the 6.5 million rand salary. In response to my parliamentary question number 484, the minister indicated that Mr. P. Malloy, the CEO who was paid the 6.5 million rand in 2020, he was appointed on a 5-year contract, and that contract was due to terminate on the 20th of January. Now, it seems to my mind that it's very strange that a legal battle would have been waging at the same time, because Mr. Malloy was going to be leaving the organization anyway. So when you refer to this amount as a settlement agreement or sort of a departure agreement, that it was easier to let him go and pay him out an amount than it was to continue fighting and incurring legal costs. I find that very difficult to believe in the context that his contract was expiring on the 20th of January anyway. Was it possibly not, in fact, that it was just a 3.3 million rand golden handshake that the CEO was given? I mean, that seems the logical assumption, given that his contract was ending on the 20th of January anyway. So you could have just waved goodbye to one another without having to pay these hefty multi-million rand payments. Can we please get clarity on that? And we will be submitting requests for all the formal documentation in that regard. Then I also accept what Mr. Cheney has said in regards to these weaknesses being addressed through slide 26. That's great. We'll obviously see how that's worked out in this current financial year's annual report. But the point really is, Mr. Cheney, that these weaknesses are not new. These weaknesses didn't just happen in 2019, 2020, and that you guys have put systems in place. These weaknesses have, the organization had been under administration the year before. So I don't accept that we must accept the entity's plan. The question really is, we only know 2 officials have been dismissed. How many criminal charges have been filed against officials? What steps have you taken in terms of recovering irregular expenditure incurred by these officials? Then in terms of Section 65 of the PFMA, the Minister has a duty to report all of the findings of disciplinary boards and all of the findings and the sanctions imposed by such a board. She's got a legislative duty in terms of Section 65 to actually report this to Parliament. When can our committee expect a report, a full report on all disciplinaries, sanctions imposed, and criminal cases, matters arising? And I've got a whole bunch of other questions, Chairperson, but I don't think that we've got time. I'll submit those as parliamentary questions and written questions. Please, can you let us know when it comes to recommendations, because I have got 3 formal recommendations to put before this committee, because I don't believe Mr. Cheney is in a difficult position. Indeed, he has been appointed as an administrator and is having to answer for actions that he was not personally responsible for. I understand the position that he is in, but these responses are not adequate. We are not hearing about the consequences of what's happened. I'm not interested, Chairperson, in a flow chart, because this has been going on for years. So I've got 3 recommendations to put to the committee when it comes time for that. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable, is it Honorable Teki? Sorry, Teki. Honorable Teki.
Chair, thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I don't have any follow-up, But I would just request maybe the DG when he responds, just to comment on the point that I raised earlier. The point that says we have seen the actions taken by HDA through the administrator, Mr. Chenley. As a department, what is the department doing currently so that we can take it from there, Chair? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mokhoto.
Thank you, Chairperson. What I would like to know is the Department of Human Settlement proactive in dealing with non-compliance by the HDA, or they are reactive? They wait first for the audit results at the end of the financial year, and then thereafter, it is now that they become amazed and they start now trying, to correct the mistakes that have been done by the HDA. Do they do timers oversight? For example, I have seen a plan or a program, to correct the mistakes done by the HDA, which has been presented. But what I want to know, after all that nice program which have been presented to us, is the department just going to sit there? Are they going to sit in their offices and tell themselves that, okay, the HDA have this nice program which they say they are going to follow, so that at the end of the financial year, that is 2020-21, that they do not get a qualified report? Or are they going to start now, interacting with HDA, doing oversight, making sure that they guide them on time to curb another irregular expenditure, wasteful expenditure, and fruitless expenditure? And that's what I want to know. And then I heard the HDA saying that with regard to the beneficiaries, they do track the beneficiaries, but I just want to make them aware that in Makana municipality in Eastern Cape, that is not the case, because we do have people that were registered, that did register for RDP houses in 1998, and then their houses were approved, even though they took long to be approved and to be given to them. Some of these beneficiaries died before they could even get their houses. And what happened is the Makana municipality, instead of making a trace of these beneficiaries and also contacting their immediate families to perhaps give them those houses, instead they sold those houses to other people who are not even staying at Makana municipality. What are they going to do about this issue? Because it is a pricking issue that bothers the people of Makana. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mokhoto. Honorable Soswai.
Chair, just two recommendations that I would like to present to the department.
We're not yet the honorable member.
To the department. Can you hear me, Chair?
Okay. Yes, honorable member.
Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes, proceed, Honorable Soswai.
Thank you. One of the issues, Chair, that perhaps the department should help itself, because HDA is an entity of the department. As we listen in this whole presentation, you are not getting a well-coordinated systems with all other sectors for HDA to win or to succeed. If then the department could be able to strengthen the coordinating in good time of systems so that systems of government should speak together upfront. The second one, Chair, is the issue of masiyeke Chair, ndiyiboni ngoku. Iflashile ma.
Honorable yeah. No, thanks so
Honorable
much. Yeah, thanks so much, Chairperson. I also have two follow-up questions. It was with regards to the issue of the performance bonuses. When listening to the DDG, Cheney, he said that the performance bonus was for the previous year. This means the one, and the previous year, if I remember very well seeing the presentation, the department had also an unqualified audit by that time. They did not, I mean the entity, they did not perform well. So I hope we are not going to be surprised in this year. We see HDA getting performance bonuses, because I think for this year, for the 2019-20, they must not get, because they got because it was for the previous year. They must account for this one. They must not get anything. In order for us, Chairperson, to be able to run these entities to the best of the best, I think the people that are doing this they must be punished. They must not be able to get what we call performance bonuses. So I hope, because this one, we understand they're saying is for 2017 or 2018-19 financial year. For 2019-20, there must be something. They must not get it, because for the coming year, they must not get, because they must account for 2019-20 financial year. We are not going to be surprised, I think, going forward. In the next coming report, we see that they got a performance bonus. The other thing, Chairperson, the next one is the next question. I support Member Mohotu with regards to the nice program that we see highlighted on page 26 of the presentation. It doesn't guarantee that we are going to get everything in order in that department, in that entity. The entity failed to comply to the Treasury regulation. What about the program? They failed to comply to the policies of public entity. They were there on paper. It doesn't mean when we see that thing on page 26, it guarantees that we are going to get the entity in order. I think the department must now do oversight to this entity. Supporting member, I think Member Sifrai also talked about that. Let the department come closer to the entity and try to give support so that they can be able to see when something goes wrong, being nearer to the entity. Because it doesn't mean that there's a program, now everything is in order. No, it is not. There are several legislation, but they fail to comply to that legislation. The issue of tax clearance, they just they know very well that you cannot do that, but they were able to allow a company that doesn't have a tax clearance certificate that is in order. They give the company the work. So, Chairperson, I'm just trying to support Member Mukhotu. The program doesn't mean that we're going to get good result. So let the department come closer and ensure that the entity is babysitted, if that is the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Masala. Just to add on questions, agreeing with the department's role must be visible, and they have responsibility to make sure that the entity perform better because they've established the entity. The entity is established in terms of the public finance management to perform a particular task. The department therefore has to support and oversight on the work of the entity and make sure that it perform. It's got all the structures that it's necessary for oversight. Your audit committee, your internal audit, the internal audit of the department, it must actually monitor the internal audit of all entities, because these are the entities of the department. Department has to take responsibility in making sure that they perform in line with their function. The second question is the capacity, the skills that are there in the HDA. If from the lay point of a woman, I would say that this is supposed to be the entity that has scored all the engineering project managers, the quality leadership that would make sure that implements on behalf of struggling provinces, municipalities, and other projects. And therefore, I want to ask DG of the department to look at as the structure has been provided. Department must have interest into people that are being appointed into this entity, because it should have people who had required skills to be able to implement projects and manage and do contract management in line with project management principles. So we should get, as we get interaction with the department, we should get that sense that department's oversight indeed look into critical areas that will make sure that the entities start to perform. So those are the issues that I wanted to add, and I'm now going to allow the department to respond, and then I'm not sure DG Changan will want to start, because I've suppressed you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The bulk of the questions, the follow-up questions.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm Honorable Tafen. Chairperson. Sorry, DG. Chairperson.
Yes,
Honorable. Yes. Chair. Chairperson, I don't know. No, my question came before, because I'm not here. The answer
Honorable Tafen.
of my question. Yeah. Chairperson, I raise a question here that people registered to get RDP houses while at early stages, but they get houses when they are older and have families. When they extend those RDP houses in order for them and their families to fit, they are being questioned by the government and asked to pay building plan. Where does the government think that they get the money of those people? So I don't know, no, I'm at the time to raise that question. Oh. Okay, Ma'am Nins. Goes.
Honorable Tafeni, the DG was going to respond to other questions, and we stopped him and say that they must wait for follow-up questions. DG Changani, you can start and then delegate some of the questions to your team.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think there were quite a number of questions, and some of them were recommendations on what the department should do to stabilize this entity. I think the question about the department getting more hands-on in providing oversight in this entity, I think we should take that as a recommendation. I think that's the question that came from Honorable Mukhala, and I think Honorable Mokhoto also raised the same question, that the department's oversight needs to be a little bit more hands-on. And I'm sure Neville Chen is going to touch on that question. But I think it's important, Chair, to state upfront that the current administrator, Neville Chen, was in the first team of executives that established this entity. He knows the mandate of this entity, both the primary mandate and the secondary mandate. And this entity has been focusing more on the secondary mandate, not so much on the primary mandate, which leads to the question that was asked earlier by Honorable Sekhwai about budgeting for HDA. HDA was never capitalized as an entity. We established it, but it was never capitalized. And the intention was that the majority of the well-located land parcels and buildings that government owns will be transferred to HDA, and we will use those land parcels or those assets to capitalize the HDA. That's why it wasn't capitalized in the first place. But that approach didn't work because it took us forever to finalize the transfer of the assets from Public Works to HDA, the transfer of the assets from state-owned enterprises to HDA. So that didn't happen, and which made it very difficult for this entity to have a budget of its own. HDA is relying on the operational budget of around 250 million rands, and the bulk of that goes into salaries. They then rely on the provincial implementation agency agreement, which sometimes comes very late. I think the point that was raised by Mam Nancy is a point that we really need to focus on. We've discussed it with the executive of HDA. In fact, we took a decision that this year, through the MTech process, which will kickstart in June, we will focus on how best to capitalize HDA. I know the first CEO of HDA, Tafi Adler, made a proposal in 2013 for HDA to be capitalized at 500 million rands, but it never happened. But that discussion is still on the table, and I think we want to prioritize it this year and make sure that we capitalize this entity. Yes, there are land parcels that will be transferred to them, but for HDA to be able to negotiate with private funders, with other developers, they need to have their own capital budget. Right now, they don't have a capital budget of their own. So the point that Mam Nancy was raising is a very valid point. Ubabu Tseki has raised an important point as well. What are we doing now? The department, what are we doing now? I think, yes, Minister took a decision to get Neville Chen to be an administrator because he knows the business of human settlements and he knows this entity very well. He was there as an executive manager right from the beginning. But I don't think that's adequate. What we want to do, we've already gone out and advertised for the appointment of the new board. We have done the shortlisting for the appointment of the new board. Minister wanted to apply her mind to decide on the new board. I think it's just a matter of time before we appoint a new board. We don't want to keep Neville there as an administrator for too long because there are too many competing demands within the department as well. And we would want to make sure that we get Neville to drive the strategy implementation of the department because that's his portfolio. So there are things that the department is focusing on now. We need to appoint a CEO as a matter of urgency for this entity because this entity has been without a CEO since the parting of ways between Pascal Moloi and HDA. And we paid Pascal Moloi because we felt it was in the best interest of the organization to part ways with him because we were paying him whilst he was sitting at home, and the two legal teams were battling this thing out. We finalized Pascal Moloi's contract in January, but his contract was coming to an end in October. So we released him before the end of his contract. And that's why you have that bigger figure in the annual report. Chairperson, the question about the waiting list, which was raised by Umam Tafin, Honorable Tafin, is a very valid point, because there are people who have been in the waiting list for a very long time. And that is why we changed tact. And I know that other people are not comfortable with the approach that we're adopting now of prioritizing elderly people. In fact, we encourage elderly people 60 and above to jump the queue. We deliberately encourage MECs to allow elderly people to jump the queue so that they can get to the houses that they deserve. And we write to MECs and we tell them to prioritize them. And that is why we push aggressively the provision of service sites for the younger generation, because they can still build houses for themselves as long as they have security of tenure. So we have to change tact, because we can complete that backlog of elderly people. There aren't too many elderly people in the country who are above 60 who don't have houses. Those who don't have houses, we can accommodate them easily without wasting time. So we take that comment by Umam Tafin as a proposal. Going back again to the stabilization of the organization, we think that we have to get a CFO appointed as a matter of agency. Remember, the CEO and the CFO are executive members of the board. Those positions, if you leave them vacant for a very long time, the organization is not going to be stable. I think we should have moved with speed and filled those two positions of the CEO and the CFO. And that's exactly what the Minister has instructed us to do, Chairperson. If there's any other question that I didn't touch, I think my colleagues, Neville Cheney, Lucian Rakwale, they are here, and we'll get guidance from the Deputy Minister on how to deal with those questions. Thank you very much, Chairperson. And I'm willing to come back if we've left out any other question. But the most important point is that we have to get this organization stable. We have to get people who are fit for purpose and who understand the business of land assemble and land development, because that's what HDA is about. It's about land assemble and land development. All the other items, project management, they are secondary mandates of this particular organization. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DG. Mr. Chain and the co-host, Mr. Vesco Koza. You have raised your hand.
Thank you, Chairperson. The DG has adequately covered. I wanted to provide clarity on the issue of beneficiaries. He has covered it well, but I thought it is prudent for me to add, Chair, that the HDA, we give you the assurance that in terms of our systems, we pride ourselves in the integrity of our list of beneficiaries. Besides the hard stuff that we do in terms of construction, we do at the onset of all our projects ensure that we do establish project steering committees with our beneficiary communities, which helps us to clear at the outset who are the beneficiaries who are supposed to benefit from those projects. In addition to that, the collaboration doesn't stop with the money with provinces and municipalities, but it goes to the center of those housing lists or beneficiary lists, because as I said earlier, the integrity of those lists, we take it seriously as the H. I thought I should just provide that clarity in addition to the input of the DG. Thank you, Chair and honorable members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koza. I see there are hands that are still up. Honorable members, can you check your watch?
Chairperson, may we put recommendations to the committee, please?
Honorable member, we will do that when we have engagement on the report itself, we'll have an opportunity to do that.
Some
But
questions
because
that haven't been answered, can I just reiterate those questions? There's 3 questions that haven't. That I've already
Honorable Sifai, you're not Honorable Sifai, you forgot to lower your hands.
Yes, Chair, please, and I don't want to speak. Please, it's a mistake.
Honorable Siopasingwe.
Thank you, Chair. I actually wanted to ask about the title deeds because the title deeds are a very hot potato. So I realized that not much has been done in that area. So I would like to encourage the department to see to it that the HTA implement and make sure that they deliver the title deeds. The second point which I wanted to say is that as a committee and oversight structure, we also need to make sure that we forever get the department and HTA to come and account to the department. Because if we also don't keep track on what is happening there, we will not be able to know exactly what is happening, as much as the department is playing an oversight role. But it is also our responsibility not to leave the situation to go haywire like the way it has, so that we are able to intervene at the right time. So we must keep them on the ball every time. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Powell.
Thanks, Chair. My questions that haven't been answered are Mr. Cheney, as the administrator's understanding of the appropriate liabilities of a juristic person in specific regard to the executive authority, because the accounting authority has been fired. So what is Mr. Cheney's understanding of the liabilities of a juristic person? 1, 2, just the number of criminal cases that have ensued as a result of irregular expenditure over the past financial year and 2018 as well. And then when can this committee expect a report in terms of section 65 of the PFMA in regards to the full details of all disciplinary action that has been taken against officials at the HDA for the time period that we have been serving, which is since the 18-19 financial year? Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, I did not also, Chair?
Yes, Honorable Musala.
Yeah, I did not also hear a response with regards to the settlement agreement for 3.3 million.
We did report Honorable Musala, but we'll ask the DG to come back on it. Yes,
and the last one, the DG emphasized that to deal with the issues of HDA, they need to appoint the CFO. I want to check, is the committee itself, like the human settlement, is the CFO, our CFO in the committee of human settlement? Is the position still vacant or is still acting or what? I just want to check, because the previous time, I think when we were at Scopa, we were told that the position must be filled as well. I want to check because I heard the DG admitting that if we don't have the CFO, the CFOs are acting, we will never stabilize the entity. So I want to check, is the CFO of human settlement as positions being filled or not? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Musala.
Chairperson, we've lost you. We can't hear you.
No, I'm saying the CFO of Human Settlement were with her on the meeting, the previous meeting of when we're meeting with the Ekurhuleni. And you remember I've welcomed her back. She has been on leave because she was sick. And then there was an acting at some point. So she's there. Can we get the response, Mr. Cheney on the issues that were raised by Honorable Amber and
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just in relation to the accountability and responsibility of the administrator, that's covered in terms of Section 31 of the HDA Act. So in relation to that, the administrator would step into the shoes of the board and then assume the responsibility of accounting authority, and obviously the related powers that would come out of or that would be applicable in terms of the PFMA, as well as the relevant treasury notes that are applicable. Chair, just in relation to the matter, I suppose the Section 65 report that we will provide to the department to provide to your honourable office, Chair. In relation to the settlement, I think DG's indicated, Chair, that the contract, the separation agreement was signed on the 20th of January 2020. The contract was due to terminate on the 31st of October 2020. And on the basis of the evaluation, as I've indicated, the balance of interest between how long the balance of the settlement would have taken, or how long the disciplinary would have taken to conclude, would have went way past the 31st of October. I think it's just important to note, Chair, that at the time when the settlement occurred, there was a disciplinary. So Mr. Mulay there was a disciplinary process that was underway, and that disciplinary process, Chair, had already commenced. I think it was during the course of, and I stand corrected here, but somewhere around January 2019. So you can see that even by the time we got to January 2020, we had gone through one charge for an entire year, and that was the aspect that we had weighed against what the amount was. Chair, I can provide through your office to Memo Shalala the exact amount and how that was broken down. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, the commitment that you made here, Mr. Chair, send it to Koliswa, the secretary of the committee, and she will make sure that honorable members get that. Yeah, thank you very much. DM.
Thank you very much.
Before you give to DM, the timeline, when can we get the detailed response in form of writing from Mr. Cheney? Because now we don't have the exact
and Chairperson, the Section 65 report timeline.
When are
for
we
that.
getting? You can even respond after a month.
Mr. Chen, you want to commit yourself? Yes.
Chair, I could come. I could provide that through the department. I mean, obviously, go through the minister by next week, Wednesday. But I'll
give it a date, because if you by minister by Wednesday, it's not. Can we give you 7 days? Is it fine?
Chair, 7 days is more than adequate. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chain. DM.
Let me start, Chair, by thanking all members of Parliament for the advice and also recommendations that were made by the honorable members, taking them very serious. And I want to talk to other issues that the members raised. Honorable Mushala, your advice that the department must come closer to the entity, I agree with you. We are going to do that. And again, what was raised by the chair to say we must monitor the internal audit, and I will make sure that we are doing that. And I'm happy, Chair, that the DG has given us hope that there will be stability, because they have started now the shortlisting of the new board. And I think once there's new board, there will be a change in the department, because once there's no stability in the department, there will be no implementation. I have a feeling that once we have that new board, things will change. And I'm not taking all the issues that were raised by the members. I'm taking them serious. They were not just waste of time. And again, Chair, I know that the issue of title deeds is something that always comes in the portfolio committee. And I agree with members that I'm also frustrated because I'm responsible for title deeds, and departments is trying by all means to talk to provinces to fast track the issue of title deeds. But I have a roadshows that are actually talking to provinces directly on the issue of title deeds. And I will make sure that I promise that when we come back, there will be a change, Chair, because some provinces are actually responding to the issue of title deeds. Chair, I think one of the things that the Honorable Siswai raised is that we in a way, she said we must give teeth to the HDA, and I agree with you that we must also support them, and I agree with you. Chair, I think most of the issues that were raised, even by Honorable Tafeni, I think DG has raised and responded to those issues that were raised by Honorable Tafeni. And I'm very happy, Chair, sitting here, that all the time when you raise issues here, it's not a matter of fighting with us, you are advising us what to do. And we appreciate that, Chair. We will be I'll be making sure that when sitting with the HDA, we will come together again, Chair, looking at all the issues raised by you, and come together and respond to those issues. Even in the HDA, we will come closer to the HDA and make sure that we respond to issues that you've raised and advise them what to do. The last thing that I would like to raise, Chair, is that I want to thank all members of Parliament. You are not really, I would say, today, the network was very, very bad, especially with you, Honorable Powell, at the beginning. I couldn't hear all the members. Where I am, I'm in the rural areas, but I've written down all the issues that you've raised, and we'll make sure that we make a follow-up. In the next meeting, we have to report to you what we have done towards the issues that you've raised. And also, we will make sure that when the board is in place, you will hear about it. We'll give you all the details of the board. And thank you very much for everything that you have advised us to do. We will do so. And thank you very much, Chair, for the time that you have given to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DM and your team. We're dealing with the annual report. I think we should make sure that in the next financial year we move with speed, Mr. Chain, because now you are in charge to make sure that we don't delay the annual report. But as we are going to deal with the fourth quarter DG Changana, let's make sure that you bring the HDA for them to come and brief us in terms of how they've moved forward in addressing that action plan that they've presented to us, so that we don't have to wait for the annual report. Obviously, because it's a delayed annual report, therefore the work already started. Can we then have, as we're going to meet, deal with your fourth quarter, bring them to come and give us the progress in terms of the action plan that they've put in place. Thank you very much, honorable members. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson?
Has the meeting been adjourned? You broke up.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, we didn't hear you.
Oh, so sorry. Hey, the network is very bad. I'm saying the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, honorable members, for availing yourself.
Chairperson. Can I quickly ask a question, please? Related to tomorrow, not tonight's meeting.
Okay. Yes, honorable.
I don't know how it happened, but we've got a clash tomorrow, where we've got a portfolio committee meeting and we've got 2 mini plenaries tomorrow at the same time.
We were not aware of the plenary, honorable Leon. I think we can agree, honorable members, that we can shift the agenda for tomorrow and allow members to attend the mini plenary, because we have not applied. It was not there on the program when we adopted the program. Can we members agree with what Honorable Leon is saying?
That's fine, Chairperson.
I also agree, Chair.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow, the agenda would be deferred, would allow members to go into the plenary, those plenary session. And thank you very much, Honorable Leon. We were not aware of that. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair. Does it mean that this meeting is scheduled? Chairperson?
Yes.
Do you mean that this meeting of tomorrow would be rescheduled?
Yes. Will be rescheduled if the time still allowed, and we'll see the date, whether we cannot squeeze the items and see that the agenda item can come into the squeeze it with another agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Dankie, voorsitter.
Honorable Leon, thank you very much. Honorable members, the meeting is adjourned.
Goodbye.
Molo Zangwa. Uye kuphi na unkosikazi kaSteve?